studying seriously and taking up your matter very nicely. I believe that I trust you. I hope I can trust you. Okay. Today we'll be starting with a new lesson. Okay. And the name of the lesson is Environmental Management. Lesson number 4, Environmental Management. Environmental management. I am sure children you all must be remembering this, alright, because we have done this chapter in our class 9 in detail there. Okay, this is just a repetition of exactly what you have learned, but a little more in detail you can say. That's all, nothing much over there. So we have to just refresh ourselves or bring back to our minds whatever we had covered up last year. Okay, now that's why I will be asking you a few questions to you all there, so that you know what it is and you can answer me as per that. Okay, can you recall? And that's why I put the title as Can You Recall? So that, because I am just checking out. Okay, can you recall? What is an ecosystem? As to what is an ecosystem and which are its different components? The question is, what is an ecosystem and which are its different components? Yes? Okay, I'll tell you. In an environment, that is all around us, in an environment, there are two major components. In an environment, there are two major components. Alright, let me tell you. Environment. Alright, I'll split this into two major parts. Environment. Two major components. Biotic components. Biotic components and abiotic components. I am sure you all remember this now, these two terms, the biotic components and the abiotic component. In an environment, there are biotic components and abiotic components there, okay? And what is happening is, there is an interaction. There is an interaction between these two components, alright? And when these two components, they interact with one another, what does it form? It forms an ecosystem, alright? So what has happening? These two systems, yeah, these two components, that is biotic component and the abiotic components, what is happening? It is interacting. There is an interaction taking place today. There is an interaction taking place. And when there is an interaction taking place, what does it form? It forms an ecosystem. Okay? So this is it. So what is an ecosystem? And in an environment, we have an environment, all of us have an environment around us. The environment consists of two major components, that is the biotic components and the abiotic components, yes. And between these two factors, there is an interaction taking place. And what is it forming? It is forming an ecosystem. I hope this part is clear to you. Alright, now, before I proceed, I just want you all to know that, can anybody tell me or can you tell me or name what are the important biotic factors? Can you name what are the important biotic factors? Anybody? Oh, I'll tell you. Biotic factors are nothing but those things which can have all living things, all living organisms. Okay, biotic factor has all living organisms. Okay, biotic factors have all living organisms. In that you can have the plants, right? Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, right? These are all living organisms which you are you can see around us. Alright? Biotic factors includes all living organisms in short. But if I have to expand it, if I say living organisms, they can be the plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, and etc. Okay? Now, then if I ask you a question, what was included in the abiotic factors? What is included in the abiotic factors? Yes, can anybody tell me what are all the different components which are present in the abiotic factors? Yes? Okay, then I will tell you. It is air, right? Water, soil. Yes, air, water, soil. Then one of the major sources, the sunlight. Alright, then it can be your temperature, day-to-day temperature of the particular places. Yes, Pune, Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, it goes on. Yes, a place, or if you say America, US, Europe, all the different places there. Yes, and excuse me. At the same time, we also have humidity. Humidity is nothing but the amount of moisture or water vapor that is present in the air. Okay, I hope all these things are clear to you there. Now, as I move on to the next part of the lesson or the next part, over to the next part, I will discuss that also with you. Okay, then now over here, what you need to do, another question coming up, that is, which are, in your textbook it is there, the question is, which are the types of consumers and what are the criteria for their classification? Which are the types of consumers? Yes? Can you recall, children, which are the different types of consumers? Okay. The different types of consumers, alright? Different types of consumers. Yes, different types of consumers are. Anybody the first one? The primary consumer. Okay. Primary consumer. C means consumer. Okay, I'm not writing the entire thing there. C means consumer. The primary consumer. Then second we have the secondary consumer. We have the secondary consumer. Third, we have the tertiary consumer or the apex consumers, like we call it, the tertiary consumers or the apex consumers. Okay, these are the three different kinds of consumers there. All right, and the criteria of classification. The criteria, they have asked you the question, what is the criteria in the textbook? The question is, what are the criteria for their classification? Now, there is only one thing that you need to remember, that is they are classified as per their different trophic levels in where they are present. They are classified as per the different trophic levels. So, which are the different types of consumers? Primary consumer, secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumers or the apex consumers. And the criteria for classification is nothing but that which is based on its trophic level. Okay, trophic level also I will be explaining to you. Just give me some time as I come down and proceed with the lesson. That part will come up there. Alright, then there is another question, children. There is another question coming up. What may be the relationship between lake and birds on a tree? Here you need to just bring in front of you two things. That is a lake, a small lake, and a few trees. And on the trees, what do you see? There are birds sitting on the trees. Alright? Two concepts, please bring them to your the picture into your mind there. A lake, a picture of a lake, and a few trees around it, and the birds sitting on the trees. Alright? So now question is, what may be the relationship? So do you think there is a relationship existing between these two things there? The answer is yes, they play a role. Alright? They play a role. Biotic and abiotic. Bring that part, the first part what I discussed. The biotic and the abiotic factors there. Okay? The birds on the tree. Now there are birds on the tree. They depend upon aquatic organisms in the lake. They depend upon what? The aquatic organisms in the lake for feeding. As they for their food. What do? They depend upon all the aquatic organisms. They pick up or they catch or they pick up the aquatic insects, fish, frogs, snails, worms, whatever is present. They become a food for the birds. Alright. Now, birds, as you know, they stay on the trees and in the vicinity around there, whatever are they, they go and sit on that, they build nests over there, they lay eggs, they hatch the eggs. That's how the process of reproduction and all goes on, the number increases. Alright. They go and stay on the vicinity on trees and live on the vicinity of the lake. So what is happening is, it is easier for the birds to capture. To capture what? The fishes, frogs, etc., insects, worms that live in water. And not only that, not only about the catching these insects or frogs or snake or worms or whatever it is, but they even drink the water which is present in the lake. Have you got me here, children? They even drink or consume the water that is present in the lake. So are they not being benefited by the lake, or are they not using everything that is around there in that particular ecosystem there? The answer is yes. Now there's another question coming up. What is the difference between a food chain and a food web? What is the difference between a food chain and a food web? This also you have learned in your 9th standard. Just a quick brush up with that part also. Alright, in every ecosystem, for that what I have to tell you is, for a food chain, I'll put it out in such a manner that in every ecosystem, there is an interaction happening between the producers, consumers and the decomposers. In every ecosystem, there is an interaction happening between the producers, the consumers and the decomposers. Yes, I will speak to you all about the decomposers. But let me tell you, I should tell you now, or I will just inform you. Decomposers are nothing but fungi or bacteria which decompose the body of living organisms so that all the nutrients and things present in the body of the organism or plant gets back into the soil or mixed back into the soil or goes back to nature. Decomposers are organisms which decompose the bodies of living organisms and plants. I hope it is clear for you there, children. And this sequence, that is the sequence of feeding habit or interaction, is called as what? Nothing but a food chain. This feeding interaction that we see between producers, consumers and decomposers is termed as what? Nothing but a food chain. Alright? Okay. Now, another point I would like to say, in every food chain, there may be 4 to 5 links. There may be links present, and in between those links, there may be between 4 to 5 links present in every food chain, or between the trophic levels constituting of again the producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. Alright? And always remember that this link that I am talking of is always in a linear sequence there. Alright? And when I come to food web, what you need to remember is a web. When I talk of a web, you know that it's not that simple. There are many things. It's it's intricate. The food web is always intricate. It is one into the other there. Alright? So the food web is a complex network. What is a food web? It's a complex network of many small food chains. Alright? A food web is a complex network of many such food chains. And when many such food chains are interwoven, that is, they are linked together to one another, what does it form? It forms a food web. Alright? I hope this part is also clear to you there. Okay. Now children, if you all have your textbooks with you, or if it's not, you can open your textbooks and refer it later on. But I will be just referring one part, that is a diagram which is present on page number 36. You all can go back to it afterwards. Yes, there is a diagram of a food chain given to you there. There is a diagram of a food chain given to you there. Alright? If you see the picture clearly, I'll just write it down, alright? I just so that it becomes easier for you then if you all are not having your books with you, I'll put it out across there. Okay. The ultimate source of energy. The ultimate source of energy on the earth is what, children? The ultimate source of energy on the earth is the sun. The ultimate source of energy on the earth is the sun. Okay. Now you have also learned that the plants, the producers that we are calling, yes, the grass and all those things, right? Alright? Yes, this is the producer. Alright? Producer. How does the producer make its food? The producer, that is all green plants, all autotrophic plants, they absorb the sunlight and with the help of chlorophyll or chloroplast, what do? They prepare their own food. They prepare their own food. Okay. Hence, what do we call them to be? We call the grass or plants which are existing in nature as the producers. Alright. The next is the food that is produced. The grass which has grown, yes, is the food for a grasshopper. Okay, is the food for a grasshopper. Alright, I'm going to just very bad a small sketch of the grasshopper I've shown you there. Alright. Yes, the grasshopper. Yes, the grass is eaten by the grasshopper there. Alright. So what does the grasshopper become? It becomes the primary consumer. What does the grasshopper become over here, children? It becomes the primary consumer. The grasshopper becomes the primary consumer. Right? Now, the primary consumer. The grass is also a prey for some other animal. Let me come down. Yes, my next organism that is present is a frog. Yes, remember children, a frog feeds on insects and now grasshopper is an insect. So what is it? The grasshopper is eaten up by the frog. So what does frog become? The frog becomes the secondary consumer. The frog becomes the secondary consumer. Alright? Yes. Now, life has to go on. There are very different types of creatures existing on the earth there. Isn't it? So many species are present on the earth. So, but remember that or try to understand or just listen to me and take it up. That is a frog. Yes? Is a food for some other animal. Yes? So, frog is a food for another animal. Why? Because it is eaten by a snake. A frog is always eaten by a snake. Yes? Nagoba. Alright. Alright. So the snake. Alright. The frog is always eaten by the snake. So what does the snake become? So what does the snake become, children? The snake becomes the tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer. The snake becomes what? The tertiary consumer. Yes, and now snake is also eaten by some other thing, alright? It also is eaten up by, you can say the eagle or the hawk or the vulture, whatever it is, and hence it becomes the apex consumers there, okay? The snake is killed by the eagle or the hawk and it is eaten up. So if you see the last but not least, when the bird animal, okay? Bird, this is the eagle or the hawk you can call it. The eagle or the hawk or the vulture. And the last is what we say is the organism, bacteria or the fungi which is present is eaten up by the nothing but the decomposers. So whatever the dead remains are there is taken up by whom? By the fungi for its growth. Alright, and that is termed has to be the decomposers. Now few bacteria and all are shown in the picture over there, and on all the levels, what do they bring about? They bring about decomposition of all. It can be the plants, it can be the grasshopper, it can be the frog, it can be the snake, it can be the eagle. It is decomposed by what? By the fungi or the bacteria over there. Now, again what I need to ask you is, there's one more question coming up. Why is it necessary to convert the picture into food web and why? Okay, if this food chain has to be converted into a food web, there should be interactions happening. As I told you, interaction between the different components, that is the biotic as well as the abiotic organism. And any living organism, as I say, can be a prey for different predators, and moreover, a predator can also become a prey for another day. Okay, frogs are eaten by different insects. The same frog which was there can be eaten by a snake, or even it can be eaten by a hawk. So I hope that part is also clear with you. Now the next topic that I need to deal with is the next topic that I need to deal with is ecosystem review. Ecosystem review. Okay, this is under whatever I have told till now, you all will be taken up in this. Yeah, biotic and abiotic factors and the interactions with each other forms an ecosystem. That was the first line that I explained to you. Every factor has an important role to play for the functioning of the ecosystem. That I gave you the example of a lake and the birds present on the tree. Then I told you is plants are producers of the ecosystem. Plants are producers of the ecosystem. Yes, plants produce food with the help of photosynthesis. By the help of photosynthesis. Yes, and various herbivorous animals. Here, I'll just bring that term back to you. Herbivorous animals, all those animals which eat grass, alright, or plants are termed as what? Herbivorous animals. In the lower class, grass-eating animals are termed as what? Herbivores. I would say that also now only. Now also I would say the same thing there. That is, herbivores are nothing but grass-eating animals. And some examples of herbivores, if I have to say, it can be deer, goat, sheep, cattle that cow, buffalo, ox, everything comes in that, horses, camels, etc. All these are what? Nothing but herbivorous animals which feed only on plants or grass. Clear, my dear children? Okay, next I come to the carnivores. Carnivores, as you all know, are flesh-eating animals. Carnivores, in simple terms, if you have to tell, are flesh-eating animals. And flesh-eating animals, you can name them as to be the lion, tiger, alright? Okay, which control. Now, I'm trying to understand, if there were no lions and tigers, existing, what would have happened to all these herbivorous animals there? Can you give a thought? What would have happened? No lions and tigers, they are not being eaten by anybody, and hence, what is likely to happen? The population of these animals, grass and eating animals, will increase in number. Alright? Will increase in number. Okay? And there will be again an imbalance being created. Isn't it? Only herbivorous animals are there, no carnivorous animals, etc. like that. So what has nature done? It has kept a balance of every species on the earth. Only we shouldn't go and destroy that. And naturally, whatever happens there. Okay. Now, as I told you in the earlier part of the lesson, decomposers or scavengers. What are they? They are nothing but organisms which eat which survive on dead remains of plants and animals. Now, in this you can even have caterpillars. You know that caterpillar is the young one of a butterfly. Alright, the larval stage there, yes. And this caterpillar develops or grows into an adult butterfly there. And you must have seen caterpillars. You say, ma'am, how is it useful to us there? Yes, caterpillars are not useful at that stage, but as they grow up, they help in pollination. When it forms or grows into an adult, it helps in cross-pollination there. Then we have termites, insects which are present in the dung, and they carry out the process of decomposition. Alright? Now, and when only if things get decomposed, can you say that your environment is clean? If things do not get decomposed, can you imagine what is likely to happen there? Tons and tons of waste material or dead remains of plants and animals will accumulate and form a heap over there. And the main or the most important thing over here that you need to remember in this review is what? Existence of human beings. Existence of human beings is dependent on the balanced ecosystem. That is why I said ecosystem has to be always balanced with the prey predator producer relationship over there. Alright? Now, I'll proceed with the lesson in just some time there. Okay? Now, I hope till whatever I have told you all is clearly understood by my children there. I hope if there is any difficulty, you all can surely ask me there. I am here to solve your problems also. Alright? Thank you.